Primitive Japan. Racial components. Early civilization. Religion. Shinto. Buddhism. The beginnings of art. The Great Reform. Japanese origins, like all others, are lost in the cosmic nebula of theory. Three elements appear to be mingled in the race: a primitive white strain through the Ainus, who seem to have entered Japan from the region of the Amur River in Neolithic times; a yellow Mongol strain coming from or through Korea about the 7th century before Christ; and a brown-black Malay and Indonesian strain filtering in from the islands of the south. Here, as elsewhere, a mingling of diverse stocks preceded, by many hundreds of years, the establishment of a new racial type, speaking with a new voice, and creating a new civilization. That the mixture is not yet complete may be seen in the contrast between the tall, slim, long-headed aristocrat and the short, stout, broad-headed common man. Chinese annals of the 4th century describe the Japanese as dwarfs, and add that they have neither wild beasts nor oxen. They tattoo their faces in patterns varying with their rank. They wear garments woven in one piece. They have spears, bows, and arrows tipped with stone or iron. They wear no shoes, are law-abiding and polygamous, addicted to strong drink, and long-lived. The women smear their bodies with pink and scarlet paint. There is no theft, these records state, and litigation is infrequent. Civilization had hardly begun. Lufcadio Hearn, with uxorious clairvoyance, painted this early age as an Eden unsullied by poverty or exploitation, and Fenollosa pictured the peasantry as composed of independent soldier gentlemen. Handicrafts came over from Korea in the 3rd century AD, and were soon organized into guilds. Beneath these free artisans was a considerable slave class, recruited from prisons and battlefields. Social organization was partly feudal, partly tribal. Some peasants tilled the soil as vassals of landed barons, and each clan had its well-nigh sovereign head. Government was primitively loose and weak. Animism and totemism, ancestor worship, and sex worship satisfied the religious needs of the early Japanese. Spirits were everywhere, in the planets and stars of the sky, in the plants and insects of the field, in trees and beasts and men. Deities innumerable hovered over the home and its inmates, and danced in the flame and glow of the lamp. Divination was practiced by burning the bones of a deer or the shell of a tortoise, and studying with expert aid the marks and lines produced by the fire. By this means, say the ancient Chinese chroniclers, they discern good and bad luck, and whether or not to undertake journeys and voyages. The dead were feared and worshipped, for their ill will might generate much mischief in the world. To placate them, precious objects were placed in their graves. For example, a sword in the case of a man, a mirror in the case of a woman, and prayers and delicacies were offered before their ancestral tablets every day. Human sacrifices were resorted to now and then to stop excessive rain, or to ensure the stability of a building or a wall, and the retainers of a dead lord were occasionally buried with him to defend him in his epilogue. Out of ancestor worship came the oldest living religion of Japan. Shinto, or the Way of the Gods, took three forms: the domestic cult of family ancestors, the communal cult of clan ancestors, and the state cult of imperial ancestors and the founding gods. The divine progenitor of the imperial line was addressed with humble petitions 7 times a year by the emperor or his representatives, and special prayers were offered up to him when the nation was embarking upon some particularly holy cause, like the taking of Shantung, 1914. Shinto required no creed, no elaborate ritual, no moral code. It had no special priesthood, and no consoling doctrine of heaven and immortality. All that it asked of its devotees was an occasional pilgrimage and pious reverence for one's ancestors, the emperor, and the past. It was for a time superseded, because it was too modest in its rewards and its demands. In 522, Buddhism, which had entered China 500 years before, passed over from the continent and began a rapid conquest of Japan. Two elements met to give it victory: the religious needs of the people and the political needs of the state. For it was not Buddha's Buddhism that came, agnostic, pessimistic, and Puritan, dreaming of blissful extinction. It was the Mahayana Buddhism of gentle gods like Amida and Kwannon, of cheerful ceremonial saving bodhisattvas, and personal immortality. Better still, it inculcated with irresistible grace all those virtues of peacefulness, piety, and obedience which make a people amenable to government. It gave to the oppressed such hopes and consolations as might reconcile them to content with their simple lot. It redeemed the prose and routine of a laborious life with the poetry of myth and prayer and the drama of colorful festival. And it offered to the people that feeling of belief and feeling which statesmen have always welcomed as a source of social order and a pillar of national strength. We do not know whether it was statesmanship or piety that brought victory to Buddhism in Japan. When, in 586 AD, the Emperor Yomei died, the succession was contested in arms by two rival families, both of them politically devoted to the new creed. Prince Shotoku Taishi, who had been born, we are told, with a holy relic clasped in his infant hand, led the Buddhist faction to victory, established the Empress Suiko on the throne, and for 29 years, 592 to 621, ruled the Sacred Islands as Prince Imperial and Regent. He lavished funds upon Buddhist temples, supported and encouraged the Buddhist clergy, promulgated the Buddhist ethic in national decrees, and became, in general, the Ashoka of Japanese Buddhism. He patronized the arts and sciences, imported artists and artisans from Korea and China, wrote history, painted pictures, and supervised the building of the Horyuji Temple, the oldest extant masterpiece in the art history of Japan. Despite the work of this versatile civilizer, and all the virtues inculcated or preached by Buddhism, another violent crisis came to Japan within a generation after Shotoku's death. An ambitious aristocrat, Kamatari, arranged with Prince Naka a palace revolution that marked so definite a change in the political history of Nippon that native historians refer to it enthusiastically as the Great Reform, 645. The heir apparent was assassinated. A senile puppet was placed upon the throne, and Kamatari, as chief minister, through Prince Naka as heir apparent, and then as Emperor Tenshi, reconstructed the Japanese government into an autocratic imperial power. The sovereign was elevated from the leadership of the principal clan to paramount authority over every official in Japan. All governors were to be appointed by him, all taxes paid directly to him, all the land of the realm was declared his. Japan graduated rapidly from a loose association of clans and semi-feudal chieftains into a closely knit monarchical state.